Time for the international papers here on France 24. James is here with me once again, and you're starting off with the International Herald Tribune.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, Stuart. So we'll have a look at the front page of the International Herald Tribune. They're talking about Ivory Coast and in particular France's role. France now finds itself engaged in 3 shooting wars for the first time in half a century, points out Stephen Erlanger, who is the Paris correspondent for the New York Times and the IHT. French troops, they're pointing out about how they attacked the Ivorian presidential palace overnight, that was the third, I suppose, war that France has now become engaged in after Libya 3 to 4 weeks ago, and of course Afghanistan. So they look at that, about the reactions to it in France. There doesn't seem to be much opposition at all, in fact, to the Ivory Coast offensive. Everybody seeming to agree with the UN doctrine of the right to protect. He then spoke to Bernard Kouchner, who is the former foreign minister and Doctors Without Borders founder. Now, he was the foreign minister in 2007 when Gaddafi was invited to Paris, and it was quite an embarrassing incident, really. He set up a tent in the garden and then turned his back on a series of contracts that had been agreed with him before that visit. So it was very embarrassing for Sarkozy at the time. And Kouchner says, really, it's hard to turn 180 degrees to invite Gaddafi and then later bomb him. It's a bit strange and a bit French, he said, apparently, laughing. So further, he also said that perhaps there was a desire to override diplomatic failures in Tunisia and in Egypt with what happened in Libya. So more of a focus on Libya, really, which the analysis seems to think that was Sarkozy's, really was his initiative, where, as in Ivory Coast, he was, I suppose, defending UN initiatives.
Now, there's one other story which is sort of getting us away from the wars around the world, but it's dominating a lot of the papers. We were just talking to our correspondent, actually, Seema Gupta, which is Silvio Berlusconi.
It's on the front page of all of the Italian papers this morning, and they're going into a lot of details, perhaps intricacies that you wouldn't find in the international papers, which are stepping back a little bit. But let's have a look at La Repubblica. Their headline is "Long March Towards Democracy. Our country is being humiliated." They are the words of centre-left politician for the Democratic Party of Italy, Pier Luigi Bersani. He addressed a massive crowd yesterday on front of the Pantheon in the centre of Rome, and he opened his rally, I suppose, by saying that the country is in a position of humiliation and shame before the world. He went on to say that with 2 years after the L'Aquila earthquake, that city still hasn't been reconstructed. There are loads of economic problems, and what are we talking about? What is everybody talking about? The justice, the case that Silvio Berlusconi is appearing at today. So he says, really, there are other priorities, and this is just truly humiliating.
Going to be intriguing as they come out. The National, Abu Dhabi, they're talking about the French debate on Islam.
Yes, I just said I'd have a look to see what some of the papers were, how they were reacting internationally to this. So a paper based in Abu Dhabi, French debate seen as attack on Islam. That's their headline, so I suppose that says a lot about how they're angling their coverage of it. Once envisaged as a 3-day conference, yesterday's debate on secularism and Islam was squeezed into a 3-hour roundtable discussion in a Parisian hotel. They go on to point out the Green Party in France, their criticism of the debate as an Islamophobic campaign. And they also point out the words of Interior Minister Claude Guéant, who made some pretty controversial comments on the eve of the debate on the Monday, saying that perhaps there were too many Muslims in France and that, that this was part of the problem. So a quick look at some front pages also in Britain. The Guardian, first arrests for 5 years in phone hacking scandal. That's the scandal that has embroiled the biggest selling paper in the UK, actually, the News of the World Sunday paper. And it's also on the front page of The Independent. So that's a big scandal about phone hacking politicians and celebrities such as Sienna Miller. And it looks now like these 2 senior guys, a chief reporter and a former chief executive of the paper, they're now being questioned about this, so it's progressing all the time.
And you've just got time to tell us about this lovely story in the Daily Mail about the honeymoon from hell.
Yes, this was Stefan Svanström and Erika from Stockholm. Now, they went on a 4-month trip, which took in a snowstorm in Munich, and then they ended up, their flights were cancelled. Then they landed in Australia, where they experienced the cyclones in Cairns, then the floodwaters of Brisbane, were lucky to run away from the bushfires in Perth, then decided to head for New Zealand just in time for the earthquake in Christchurch. Christchurch, and the last leg of their trip was in Tokyo, where they arrived in time for the earthquake, the tsunami, and whatnot. So literally a series of disasters, one after the other. And apparently, Stefan also avoided the tsunami in where was it? There was the tsunami a number of years back in Southeast Asia. I'm losing the train.
Philippines.
Yes. So basically, a pretty accident-prone couple.
Can we sign them up? I think they could be good correspondents for us. We can send them to places.
Have a nose for trouble.
Yeah, we'd know where the next news was going to come from. James, thank you very much. James Green with the International Paper Review.